Now, there are many kinds of power, both the ones we use and the ones we do not yet use, acknowledged and otherwise. The erotic is a resource within each one of us that lies in a very deeply female and spiritual plane. It is firmly rooted in the power of all our unexpressed and unrecognized feelings. In order to perpetrate itself, every oppression in our history must corrupt or distort those various sources of power within the culture of the oppressed, as for instance within our culture as women, that can provide energy for change. Now, for women, this has meant the suppression of the erotic as a considered source of our power and information within our lives. We have been taught to suspect this resource. It has been vilified, abused, and devalued within Western society.
Yay. So today, so we're doing this in 4 parts. We may do it in more, but what we're doing is we're deprogramming the anti-sex cult. And on Friday, we'll be using what's called the BITE model to deprogram, hopefully, the culture and to begin to break out the exact ways that our anti-sex is anti-woman, and this anti-woman force in the world has to be deprogrammed both externally and internally. And this is one of the most important things that I want to say, is because it's often, it isn't men. That's the punchline. The punchline is that you have women who are nobility, who will not take their seat. As a result, you have men, crazy, and what crazy men do is oppress women. But it's all remedied the minute we take our seat. And so there's the ultimate sleight of hand is the act of pointing outward. Is the ultimate sleight of hand is thinking it's out there. Anything is the ultimate. That's really the, regardless of what it is. When I was in the LGBTQ plus community, it was thinking it was the straight people. It was, no, it's not them. You take your seat, and then you become a force that cannot be oppressed, and actually that becomes a force, even more importantly, that can absorb the forces of oppression, take them in, convert them, and use them for benefit. That's some real badass shit that we're going to be doing. It just takes some time to get people into their seat. Once you get into your seat, you have a spine that can't be bent. You are charged and very clear. But somehow I'm going to have to get us, hopefully, from Western woman will save the world. And I have to give so many caveats on that. Western woman and the people who love her, and those who are in the East, whatever. I'm just going to, so for purposes of ease, I'm going to say Western woman, and you can make it whatever you want, okay? So Western women will save the world. I discovered that is difficult for some people to believe. And then because of what we'll be talking about today is the obstacle called tumescence. And then the how will Western women save the world is the real question, right? And then you heard today, and that will be the restoration, the reclamation of Eros by women, for women, and then for the world. And so that I know, don't think I don't know, that it sounds crazy to people, that first, that Western women will save the world. I mean, I always tell this story because it was just, I have this Instagram friend, Joey, who is consistently writing to me saying, this, I just learned other people don't think like this. So there you go. I'm one of those people. So I just started this book, Women Have Inestimable Power. And then Amy said, you've already lost your audience because nobody would believe me. They would think I was a quack. And so, so then starting with Western women will save the world. Well, that's self-evident to me. There is no question about that. I mean, there's sometimes around women's movement, and there's a big question, but there is no question that that is the Dharma. That is what will happen eventually. It may happen in my lifetime, it may not, but it is what is written into the fabric of existence to happen. It has to happen that way eventually. It's like if you plant an acorn, it's not going to sprout into a morning glory. It's been laid in a very certain way to have a very certain outcome that has to happen. Once you see it, I spoke of this yesterday. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I've seen it. Hopefully my job is to, point at the moon. Hopefully, I had quite a few people look at my finger, but you really just look at the moon, and then we're all looking at the moon together. And once we see it, it becomes self-evident that, like the experience that I described with psychedelics, where nobody has to tell you. Once you've seen it, nobody has to tell you. Once you've seen it, it arranges you. And that arrangement becomes your relationship with whatever you wish to call it, the Dharma, spirit. I don't really like the word spirit, but you can use it. The forces, God, whatever you want to call it, it becomes your relationship once you've had contact, and then you're responsible for that relationship, and only you are responsible for that relationship. And then it gives you all kinds of orders that if you ignore, you experience pain. And if you don't, you experience less pain. And eventually, it's that less pain starts turning into joy. That's, as far as I can tell, the way it works. And then it turns into pain again. So I don't want to oversell the program. I'm not really in a position to do that. Although I can tell you, when I first got canceled, there were all of these people who were like, "Oh, I want to be canceled." So that is a very, that's a Sicilian act, and it's a Vajra pride. So Vajra pride is really it isn't American pride. Vajra pride is the pride that you must never leave. It is the only sin in Buddhism, is to leave your Vajra pride and to go into ordinary mind and to forget that you are the unlimited reality. And so you have to sit in that Vajra pride. So what Vajra pride does is, wherever you are, it says, this is the place to be. Everyone really wants to be here. So you all want to be here. Joke. But that is the aim. The aim is to, wherever you are, whatever your circumstances, whatever is happening, it's not faking. It is your responsibility to turn that place into joy and to radiate that joy for others, so that should they ever end up in that place, they'll know that joy is possible. So the most important thing we can do is, wherever we enter, to find and express joy, so that people know that joy is possible everywhere. When I first had my experience, I was with a woman, she may even be here. It was with a woman who had a warehouse and drugs and raves, and it was not, I had actually left the Zen robed people for this woman. And what she showed me is that profound presence can exist even here. And I think that's actually what I needed, because I was so enamored with the symbols of it that, it took me a good almost 2 years to be like, oh, you know, oh, you know. And then to actually, because you have to develop a discernment, because there are some people who are wearing fancy robes and they don't know shit. And then there are some people who are lying out, I live in Harlem, who are lying out on the sidewalk and they know plenty. And so what you have to do is develop the monitor that can read it irrespective of the title that someone has, the letters before or after their names or their outfit. You have to be able to realize that that's that person. And the best people I've ever found are the stealth people. They're the ones that you don't know or would never suspect are it, because they can be risky. They don't have anything to protect. They're just, all they care about, they don't care about shit. I'm cussing a lot today, but other than getting you home. That's the only thing they care about. And they'll go to any lengths to do that, because they don't have, they don't have some big fancy thing that's with all of these rules that they have to have in order to keep those letters or those robes. They don't have that. So there you go. So we are going to start with this idea of how could that be? How could that be? I do know that, like I said yesterday, that I have the K for kook when I say these things. And by the same token, I don't care. They're true. So I'm going to keep saying them. And so how could it be that Western women will save the world? And remember, Western and everyone. Western women will save the world by reclaiming sexual energies in that entire sphere for ourselves, and then becoming facile with those energies and learning how to wield them for our purposes. How could that be? That makes absolutely no sense to most people. And I've learned, even to the people who say that it makes sense to, it often doesn't. So I wanted to break it down a little bit more, and then also present why it doesn't look that way. How could it be so obvious to me, but it doesn't look that way to all of these people, even the people that it should, even people who call themselves feminists. They don't have from what I can tell from most of the books I've read, they don't have a freaking clue. They're still saying, if those men would change, which is just like your average housewife, if those men would change, then I could be happy. No, that isn't how it works. It works by, as soon as I change, as soon as I DTMS, then all of a sudden there's a signal that I send. When I send that signal, everything around me changes. Whoa. So how do we do that? And why don't we know that? And how do we overcome that experience of overwhelming evidence to the contrary of what we know? How do you sit in the middle of absolutely horrific seeming circumstances and know this is great? We're on the right track. We're going. When I Malidoma Somé, before he passed, asked me if he could do a divination for me, which I thought was very sweet. And I had already been canceled, and I was a little, I get a little bit uncomfortable about people seeing into the depths. I don't necessarily always want to show anybody the heartache. And I knew he could see, so it was really rough. But we just sat, and he just threw the bones, and then he looked up, he looked down, he looked up, he looked down, and then he just laughed. And the woman who was in there was like this, and he just kept laughing and laughing and laughing. And he said, "You're on the planet to tell everyone it's going to be okay. It's okay." And he said, "You just live in it's okay. I can see it." And I was like, "Yeah, it's okay. No matter what, it's okay. It's okay." So maybe that's our mantra today, is it's okay. And then it was good. The woman at the end said, "He doesn't usually do it like that." I said, "Okay, it's okay." So I want to present basically the vision and the hope. That's where I want to start. I don't want to go in depth, because the vision and the hope for me happens with pure transmission. And that first it happens with pure transmission. Then it happens with mid-level transmission. And that's where I would share frames with you of the experience. But then it happens with contextual transmission. And that's what we're in now, is contextual transmission. And so the where we start, so I'm going to start with Buddhism. We aren't going there. We love Buddhism. It is our Amy called it our cousin, our cousin, or our extended family. It has been extraordinarily good to us. When our little country got blown up, it came and rescued us. Really, Doctors Without Borders. Really amazing. And so I feel nothing but reverence. And so I'm going to show you, though, how Buddhism did it, and then I'm going to show you how we do it. This is from Ken MacLeod, Wake Up to Your Life. Buddha Shakyamuni's way to presence was through the problem of suffering. So their way to presence is through the problem of suffering. What is it? How does it arrive? Can it be ended? How do we end it? When other spiritual teachers and philosophers asked Buddha to describe his teaching, he usually answered, and this is one of my favorite answers, although mine is different, I teach one thing and one thing only, suffering and the end of suffering. I teach desire and fulfillment. That's really how it works from the feminine end. In his first teaching, Buddha formulated his understanding as the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the origin of suffering. As the Four Noble Truths: suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to cessation. Stated boldly, the Four Noble Truths seem a bit enigmatic. They are, in fact, based on a simple problem-solving model, a model that dates far back in Indian philosophy. So this is just the model that they use, and then that's where you get the questions. What is the problem? What is the root of the problem? Is there a solution? And how do you put the solution into effect? And so we do something similar, but we start at a different place. And why do we start at a different place? And I will say that my dear brother, friend, Drupal, the reason that I, other than just pure karma, the reason that I knew he was the one for me to work with, I knew that I needed a masculine force that I trusted to the depths of my soul. And, that's a difficult one to find. But what he said was good. I was on a class, he was teaching, and he said, in masculine paths, men have this whole process that they go through. They get on the subway in order to get to the Empire State Building. They get out, they get to the Empire State Building. They're there. They're so proud that they're at the Empire State Building. And then you talk to women and you realize they're already at the Empire State Building. And so I'm going to keep saying this, because what I keep seeing is women getting on that damn subway and then like wondering why they're having a hard time negotiating the subway or having a kind of spiritual materialism around it. Like, I'm on the subway and I'm better than you because I'm on the subway. No, you're away from home. You're coming here. Here's where you're coming. So I don't know how much better you are. So the thing that we have to do is it's a very reverse path. So it's a matter of realizing you're there. You're there. And it is the hardest. It's just apparently just the hardest thing to do. That outward seeking self that is so ingrained in woman, looking somewhere, anywhere for it to be something, anything other than this. Because what happens if you realize not only are you it, but you're the it that is the destination. You're already there where so many are trying to get to. You were born into that when you were told the exact opposite. So that, in masculine tradition, they're undoing the masculine overage. Is that the word? Is that even a word? Over-selfing. And in feminine, we have to do the under-selfing. And so it's a complementary process. And I want to say both are equally as difficult, but it's really difficult because once a woman does an entire masculine path, or any path, to be honest, other than the path, that path of coming back to self, coming back to self, coming back to self in some way, it's like, okay, I don't know why you want to double it up. It's hard enough to do your own path. It's hard enough to do your feminine path. But to, go off on somebody else's path, I don't know. It's like that whole journey from the Empire State Building to the subway station on the other side of town, riding the subway with all these people trying to pretend like you're a good subway rider, And in order to get to the, the place and act like you don't know where you're going or what it's going to be like, it's just ridiculous. You're useless. I'm sorry, but that is my feeling. It's women take themselves out, and the reason I think we take ourselves out is because there is no map. And what happens when a woman has to rely on her own internal compass and her own internal knowing? Oh, well, that is daunting. That is absolutely terrifying, especially because we've been told that we're crazy and we don't know. And so that clunk, that decision that it takes to come back and be the authority being the author of reality, the author of your own experience and the experience around you. Think about it. That's a pretty profound responsibility and level of accountability. And this for women who have a level of tumescence that leaves them here. This is a quote from Kat Rosenfeld. And this is what I would call, there's these various forms of tumescence, and one of them is hopeless, helpless, and powerless, right? Hopeless, helpless, and powerless. She does a great job. The thing is, if women can't be trusted to assert their desires or boundaries, because they'll invariably lie about what they want in order to please other people, it's not just sex they can't reasonably consent to. This is a really important argument, I think. It's medical treatments, car loans, nuclear non-proliferation agreements. Our entire social contract operates on the premise that adults are strong enough to choose their choices, no matter the ambient pressure from horny men or sleazy used car salesmen or power-hungry ayatollahs. If half the world's adult population are actually just small beings, hapless, helpless, fickle, fragile, and much too tender to perform even the most basic self-advocacy, everything starts to fall apart, including the entire feminist project. You can't have genuine equality for women while also letting them duck through the trapdoor of, but I didn't mean it, like children when their choices have unhappy outcomes. And some of you may remember from many years back, those of you who were here many years back, I often refer to David White's poem. He has a book called The Three Marriages, and he talks about the fact that the vows you make, even in your mind, are received. You don't get out of those. And you may get out of those with the people around you, the circumstances. There's a million ways that you could get out of this. You do not get out of this with the Buddhist and Bodhisattva thugs that will come and chase your ass into misery. And they'll make you sick, they'll make you depressed, they'll make you crazy, they'll make you neurotic. All of those are the vows that you're breaking, and the Bodhisattvas, because as soon as you get back on, they don't necessarily make you happy, but they do make you clear. Why? Because they're going to use you. They're going to use you for the thing that you vowed to or agreed to. And so as soon as you get back on the path, they make you clear. There you go. So this is the Eros for basic truth. There's a bigger one, but this is the women's one. So women have the power of their birthright. This is one. Claiming it, they will experience unimaginable joy and thriving. See, it's the reverse. We don't start with the suffering. 2, women have the power of sexual energies. Its use is directly proportional to whether they flourish or languish. 3, women have the power to overcome obstacles. They will eliminate greed, hatred, and delusion. Oh, and they will tame delusion for themselves and for the world. 4, women have the power to stop their own suffering, the causes of suffering and the suffering in the world. Right there. So once you've made it to that place, once you've established yourself as a radiant joy, then all of a sudden the guys who are coming up the hill who have made it through their suffering and have just touched on joy. That's where the traditions meet, right there. That's the intersection. Hello. So, okay, good. So, so I want to make sure. Okay, sorry. Sorry. Someone just came in the room, and I am awkward, so I can't not look. So I'll just do this. I'll read it again really quickly. The 4 basic truths of Eros. 1, women have the power of their birthright. Claiming it, they will experience unimaginable joy and thriving. 2, women have the power of sexual energies. Its use is directly proportional to whether they flourish or languish. 3, women have the power to overcome obstacles. They will eliminate hatred and greed, and they will tame delusion for themselves and the world. 4, women have the power to stop their own suffering, the causes of suffering, and suffering in the world. Good? Okay, so then, but how can it be that we are so far removed from that? And I'm claiming that that's the ground that we exist on. That's the ground that we stand on. And that's when we begin to get into the conversation about tumescence. So I worked with David Ord. I hope he's on here. He's come on often. Wonderful human being. I mean, really a seer, somebody I didn't have to explain what I was doing. He just dove in, and he had been Eckhart Tolle's editor, and he said, oh, I understand tumescence, because tumescence is potential. This is important to understand. We just haven't learned how to potentiate this potential. And so it ends up being suffering, what he would call the pain body. That's what Eckhart Tolle would call the pain body. And he said, but the thing that this offers is the solution to transform that pain body into creativity and really what's called bodhicitta, the will to contribute in the world. So a description of, I thought this was good. This is, so you'll hear me often, Marie von Franz, any Jungian's going to show up in this. So she does a great description of what happens when people don't potentiate their creative or their erotic energy. And so in this tradition, Eros, creativity, all of they also interchangeably use the word soul. They're all one thing, okay? So here she uses creative, but later she uses Eros, okay? One of the most wicked, destructive forces, psychologically speaking, is unused creative power. If someone has a creative gift and out of laziness or for some other reason doesn't use it, the psychic energy turns to sheer poison. That's why we often diagnose neuroses and psychotic diseases as not lived higher potentials, which is great. I think you aren't condemned and doomed for life if you're neurotic, which is, I really appreciate. So all of this neurosis is just not lived potential. So it brings hope. These things bring hope. Among other things, it makes people automatically want to pull back everybody else who tries. It's built into the structure that if I'm not living my creative potential, I want to bring you down. That's what she's saying. Someone who has unlived creativity tries to destroy other people's creativity. And somebody who has an unlived possibility of consciousness always tries to blur or make uncertain anybody else's effort toward consciousness. So it's incumbent upon us. This is when we talk about compassion or bodhicitta or those things. Compassion sounds so warm, nice, and compassionate is so compassionate. I remember one time many years ago talking to my teacher and saying, I fear that I don't have compassion because I'm too fierce. I just want to make things right. And they said that's the ultimate compassion. You know, I describe my compassion as if a picture's sideways, I go crazy. I have to get it right. And that is essentially what is at the foundation of real compassion. It's not do-gooding. It's not sacrifice. I mean, in my mind, you know, and if you want to add a little Christian flavor, you can put that on there. It's an extra weight that I can't carry. My weight is just to set things right. That is the fundamental act of compassion. The 5 faces of compassion are peace, increase, power, wrath, and activity. If you have those 5 things in equal access, then what happens is at any moment you can arise with whatever face you need to arise in order to serve the moment, to set it right and set it clear. Does that make sense? So all of those things that we've been called in terms of being called neurotic, like shapeshifter, if you actually are steering it positively, then what that means is you can use that quality that's ingrained in you for purposes of bringing benefit. So, but when I say it's incumbent upon us to ensure that everyone, I don't know what you want to call it, wakes up, turns on, lights up, has the flash, that is because if you're creative and those people aren't creative, then we saw what happens. That's the flash of compassion. The flash of compassion is that if I wake up and everybody around me isn't also awake, then they're going to bum my high. Because we're all connected. They're going to try to bring down creative energy. They're going to try to put a fog in front of consciousness energy. And so that's what gives you what's called equanimity. That's why we would have equanimity. There's no reason to have equanimity other than a very utilitarian reason. There is no reason that you would want to do surgery equally on your partner, a stranger, and your enemy, other than that you are equally beholden to every one of them. Every single one of them equally, if they're not awake, can destroy your experience. Your experience also can be the bigger experience of the world just moving in the right direction. You know, you don't have to take it all that personally, but it's a lot better when you get it flowing. So many years ago, I think we made a really wrong turn. I think we made a lot of wrong turns, but especially in terms of feminism. I think we had a brilliant diagnosis with Betty Friedan, with the feminine mystique. And I'm going to read this to you. The problem is that what she the protocol that she suggested was entirely wrong. Okay. This is so good. What is this problem that has no name? What were the words women used when they tried to express it? Sometimes a woman would say, I feel empty somehow, incomplete, or she would say, I feel I don't exist. Sometimes a woman would tell me that the feeling gets so strong that she runs out of the house and walks through the streets, or stays inside her house and cries, or her children tell her a joke and she doesn't laugh because she doesn't hear it. I talked to women who had spent years on the analyst couch working their adjustment to the feminine role, their blocks to fulfillment as wife and mother. But the desperate tone in these women's voices and the look in their eyes was the same as the look of other women who were sure they had no problem, even though they did have a strange feeling of desperation. Which that's the background noise for 30 years of teaching. That is the background noise. The question always came down to the reason why I started when I was graduate teaching student, was that we had a question, what do you want to know about your sexuality? And every single woman's response came back with something that translated to what is wrong with me. I don't feel like having sex with my partner. What is wrong with me? I have a crush on the wrong person. What is wrong with me? I ignite in these strange ways. What is wrong with me? And I realize what is wrong with women is that we think fundamentally at the foundation that something is wrong with us. And so the questions often, if you want to get to the primal place, it's going to be either food or sex. That's how you're going to have to solve it. And then you're going to have to work it from the bottom up. And this is where I think she went terribly wrong, because the prescription that she gave was for to go to work. Women need their own. Women need their own. Women need their own. And she had the right idea. We do need our own, but there's a different our own that we need, and that's autonomy. There's a basic fundamental sense of autonomy that has to run through the cord of who we are, that is rooted in our noblesse oblige, the nobility that we have from our position, that if we're actually going to be happy at what we do. I think we were given a bad bill of goods when we were given the bill of goods for equal rights. It's, if you got all of your equal rights tomorrow, would you be happy? No. Well, maybe you would. I don't know. I wouldn't be, because I want equal fulfillment, and I want equal access to fulfillment, and I want equal access to fulfillment on my terms with my body. And that isn't available in this world. I don't see a reflection of what would bring fulfillment for this particular body readily available and equally and readily available. So that's, we order too short. Ram Dass has said, it's not that you want too much, it's that you don't want enough. And so our dreams are so low. It's like, in our dreams, we're still making a social disadvantage the center of everything that we're dreaming about. All I want is to not feel so shitty, and to have men not mansplain every damn thing, and to not open my computer and get these dick pics all the time or something like that. But I just want to not feel slightly violated, no matter what. Like that's our bar. That's like that, and you have to know that there is an entire tier of very smart academic people who spend entire careers on that bar, not thinking that if we actually even got it, which I don't think that's how you get it. I think you get it by taking your seat and commanding that becomes so. But if you got it, what would happen? And can people actually be compelled into liking you and listening to you? I don't think so. So anyway, okay, good. So we're talking about tumescence. So that, I thought that was a great description of tumescence with the wrong solution. And I do think that Audre Lorde that we played at the beginning has the solution. So James Baldwin has said, I imagine only one reason people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once the hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with the pain. I think that's so powerful, especially, right now. Right now, I don't know. I don't know that it's not always been so. It seems crazier than when I was in the 70s and 80s. I don't know. But right now is a time of such vitriol, such hate. I started this whole thing because of this conversation that I put on my Instagram, and the depth of hate and paternalism that just the voice that people use without realizing how seeded with hostility it is, how backed up with hostility, that when I come back and I just say, it sounds like you're in pain. And then they say, oh, okay. and you realize, oh, people are just accustomed. That's just the water that we swim in. The joke, two fish are swimming. One says, hey, how's the water? And the two fish, the grandpa fish says, hey, how's the water? And the two fish say, water, what water? And that's sort of how this escalation of hostility is in our culture right now, where people don't even, it's just their tone of voice. It's not the idea of actual genuine care and compassion in the voice that we use is absent. It's unless, and I will say, and this is, to all of you who have utterly changed my mind and restored hope in a way that I can't deny it no matter how I try, who've written on my diaries. unless, really the volume goes up and then we can really hear pain. But what would happen if we could hear it at a really subtle level with each other? We didn't have to get to this screeching level. We didn't have to get, to a boot on someone's neck. We didn't have to get to these places before we just responded to each other. So that's what we're looking at. Now, I don't know who's familiar with Reich, but he did a very good job of talking about the basic precursor to our understanding of tumescence. And he did a good job biologically, and that's you have to look at tumescence in two ways. There's the biological and the psychic level, and so it's the equivalent on the psychic level to the Buddhism form of suffering, greed, hatred, and delusion. That feeling where you can't get enough, you're obsessed, you can't ingest enough, you can't smoke enough, you can't drink enough. It's just you can't get enough to feel good. The hatred, like I just feel irritated. Just that is, hatred, or I just can't stand this president or this president, and then the delusion. And the delusion is that you are anything other than pure majesty, especially for women. But once you realize that, you're called to account. You're called to account to respond to the world in that way. And that's really, in my mind, tomorrow, Thursday we're doing the women's material. So, and that's most of what I do is crossing that bridge. How do you cross that bridge of having been enfeebled? And I work, one of my editors is here. And she was part of the book where I said women have inestimable power. And then in that same book, we talked about, the mother who just so identified with her daughter's sickness that she convinced the entire town that her daughter was ill and kept coming up with other diseases until this perfectly healthy child was being treated for cancer. Her head was shaved. She was being wheeled in a wheelchair. I just getting sicker and sicker and sicker, but sicker from the medicine she was getting from what the mother was telling the doctors was happening with this child. So then the child killed her mother and was put in prison and has been released. But that to me, so this is where I got really charged, according to my editor, and that's so what I'm saying, Courtney is one of my editors, and her aunt is one of the founders of women's studies, and so she brought the book excitedly to her. She was not excited because I then went on to say that is what feminism has done to women. It's enfeebled us. Anything that makes you focus on your social disadvantage rather than your potential, that doesn't have that kind of asset framing. If I keep telling you what you are not capable of, what other people are doing to you, how impossible it will ever be for you to get ahead, then the bias, the confirmation bias that we talked about yesterday will happen. You'll be looking for all of the ways that you should be aggrieved and are not getting ahead. But if I begin to develop a feminism that is rooted in your competence, your strength, your potential, and your power, then you know what? You're in that same way we talked about with that study about being lucky. When you think you're lucky, suddenly you are lucky because you have the confirmation bias. So if you are told that again and again and again by the institution, because feminism is an institution. It's a powerful thing. It's an authority. It has a kind of a big butch as the mascot, but it is nonetheless, right? And so it is telling you that you're not capable. And so you're just getting more and more enfeebled and disabled and looking for the problems. And so there has to be some way to break out of that. That is cultural tumescence. Okay, so now we're going to go into Reich. So Reich talked about the organ is the name that Wilhelm Reich gave to the energy that moves through us. We call that Eros. Reich believed that where there is emotional repression, there is a concomitant, I'm not even going to say protoplasmic, that sounds like trippy dude, contraction in the body. because this physical tension tends to become chronic with time, binds energy, and constricts the free pulsations of our bodies, it is truly an armor that imprisons us for life. If we are all so armored, and we are, according to the author, then the history of humanity has been the history of an emotionally and physically crippled animal. Our revolutions and our religions cannot liberate us because after we have struggled to free ourselves, we still find ourselves within the cocoon that we continuously weave. So what he talks about is that the parasympathetic nervous system is stronger than the sympathetic nervous system, but the sympathetic nervous system can control the parasympathetic nervous system. So if I keep feeding information into you that there is something wrong with you, every single time the natural arising of energies, the rhythms and the flows happen that are not in accord with the ideas I put in your head, there will be a constriction. There will be a progressive constriction. That constriction will occur until there is a lock. We've found this in Eros. What happens for so many women is that your body, anytime arousal happens, is supposed to go into the natural contractions that you see in climax. Most of what we do in the practice is to restore the natural rhythms in the body by removing the ideas that anything's wrong with you and allowing the rhythms to activate in their normal way. But this feeling of emotional armoring has it be that people are out of touch with their environment. So you're out of touch with your environment, everything becomes conceptual, everything becomes cognitive. We no longer are living in limbic resonance, feeling each other. 1/3 of my brain exists to feel into the feeling states of you and all mammals, and 1/3 of your brain exists to feel into the feeling states of me, right? So all of these ideas, all of these theoretical ethics are a replacement for a human capacity to know. If I can feel into you, I can know if I'm causing harm. If you can feel into me, you can know that you're causing harm. And then we're actually in what we talked about with Dr. Andrews' work, which is the merge state of Unaya Mystica, or peak state consciousness, right? So that's where we want to get back to, is that kind of connection, because what Reich says, he's kind of hard to read because in the middle of having a lot of science, he'll talk about fascism, but he is a deep believer that people who don't feel in this way, who are emotionally and psychically armored, the reason that this is so is because the reason that we have fascism is a result of that. So when you're looking at how you want to change or benefit the world, then you have to get down to the root of things. And you have to get to how every single human being could become a participant in that experience. And what we were talking about yesterday with Matthew Fox saying, if everybody could just experience the awe and grandeur of nature, then there would be no climate disaster. But whoa, lo and behold, people can't feel it. So you have to get people back to that place. So I'm going to give, oh my goodness, I'm going to give just a quick bit on tumescence. And then, and why, so we began with Western woman will save the world. And how will she do it? She will do it by reclaiming sexual energies in the sexual sphere. And why would that matter at all in any way to men? This is the question, right? Well, here's your answer. So in terms of evolutionary biology, women track the environment. Men track women. So if a woman is tracking the environment, and we all know the stereotype of women, right? We're crazy, we're volatile, we're mouthy, we're difficult, we're a whole series of things. That's the stereotype. We don't know what we want, we're indecisive. So say you're a signal and you're tracking the environment. And you're all of those things. And then what's tracking you is tracking that. That is how the world goes crazy. So how do you bring it back to sanity? You bring the feminine force back to clarity. You remove the tumescence, the crazy, the hypervigilance, the checked outness, and then you have her, then you seat her in her position with the clear vision that's already there. She's already at the Empire State Building. Once you're just removing her awareness that she's already at the Empire State Building. From there, she can just tune into what we need to do to get us all there. So, are you blocked by tumescence? What is it that we all seek? Well, I don't even like that part. Deeper than the various no, I don't even like that part. The answer lies in the phenomenon called tumescence. This is a blockage of the raw energy of our life force. That's how we define it. It's a blockage in the raw energy of life force. When this energy is restricted, it causes all kinds of problems in many areas of our lives. It's at the root of the pervasive dissatisfaction, emptiness, and the hunger we all feel that has no name, but that is always present in the background. Tumescence creates the emotional armor that blocks passion, flow, and intimacy. Tumescence is pervasive because it is a self-perpetuating system that feeds not only internally on our vitality, but also externally off of others. And this is the thing that I want to say here. It does so by provoking drama, often at the very moments when we're most desirous of being close. It comes out of the blue and can wreck any happy occasion. Not only is tumescence at the root of so much drama in our lives, it is also present as low-level anxiety, neurosis, despair, and a sense of hopelessness. These symptoms often reflect the dysregulation of our nervous system, which is trapped in a stress response. So one of the reasons why it is our duty, yeah, I'm not a big duty person, but it is our duty. It's our duty as human beings to transform this tumescence. And that's the beauty, is that when you transform it from this entity inside of you that just feeds off the pain, your own pain and other people's pain. It's like, that's what it is. It's just a fiend for pain, and you can see it looking at the headlines and then scrolling and looking for oh, I'm so mad, that person's stupid, and then you can see it when somebody does something a little irritating and you don't like it, and you can see it in the place where you didn't get what you want once again, hopeless, helpless, and powerless. Those are, for women, those are really the three primary ways. I don't know what to do, or it won't work for me, or I can't, you guys can, but I can't, and or I started this project, but I just can't see it all the way through. That's just tumescence. That's just tumescence. People get so mad at me sometimes when I'm not sensitive to I'm not sensitive to the entity that's eating your soul. So it's not real. So then, but it looks so real. I often talk about tumescence, it lies to you in your own voice. And so what do? Well, it's really important that you learn how to grab it and direct it and steer it. Because if it's just operating unconsciously inside of you, then what it's going to start to do, usually passive aggressively, sometimes overtly aggressively when it reaches screech level, is it's going to try to provoke pain in others because it doesn't care. It's like the demon that doesn't care what it eats. It just feeds off of pain. It could feed off of joy that will then turn to pain, but it's always looking for pain. It's what sabotages you. It's what sabotages other people. And so it's just this thing that eats. Now it can be converted into virtue. That's the beauty of it. And then what happens is when it's converted, usually into creativity or care of others, or, fierce protection of others, all of these things, then what happens is people can eat that. That's what a woman's radiance is. You know, you radiate that kind of glow. And you know, Jun Jung was he's a scientist, and he heard us talking about tumescence, and he said, "Oh, it's so interesting. You know, the science says that stress is contagious. If somebody walks into the room and they're upset, then all of a sudden everyone tests higher for stress from that one person walking into the room." And he said, but they did the same study and they don't talk about this. Of course, they don't talk about this. And they had somebody who was extraordinarily joyous and happy walk into the room, and that's equally contagious. And so there is a way that not only do you can move to a place where you aren't having to mitigate your pain, you aren't having to mitigate the pain that you're provoking in others, but you can actually activate a joy that just your mere presence in the world, feeds other people. And that to me is I like that. As an introvert, autistic kind of gal, I like that you can. By the way, I use autistic lightly. I'm really OCD, so that picture has to be perfect. I'm Virgo. I don't know. I see all these labels. Really, I'm Sicilian. Who knows? But what I do know, is something important, and that is that on Thursday we're going to talk about women, and specifically the various expressions of woman that if I could, and I do believe I can, probably because I got my K, my red K here, kook, but I would just, you know, pull the, what is it? The wires that keeps these programs running, because I watch my dear friends and my dear friends who don't remember they're my dear friends, and I watch people run by these programs, and it's heartbreaking to see them in so much pain, in genuine pain, and in genuine enough pain that they're willing to share it, and it's entirely unnecessary because it's not true. So that's what I want to talk about on Thursday. And then on Friday, that's when I want to do the great deprogramming of the anti-sex cult built on misogyny. And I'm going to give you, we'll do, like I said, I think we'll do the bite model, and give you the various ways that you can begin to read how you're being influenced, and really fundamentally how you're being influenced away from your birthright of power, eternal space, wisdom, and love. You know, it's crazy that we would do that, but we do. But we aren't going to anymore, because we're going to deprogram that. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll take a few reflections from online. You can raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. We'll start with Leah. Are you able to unmute?
Now I can unmute. Okay.
Beautiful hair, little lady.
Oh, thank you. I am loving today's talk and yesterday's talk. It's like, it feels like a new foundation we're building for like this whole new set of talks. And I feel excited because I've been doing erotic practice and Om for a long time. And I feel like I'm at a place where I'm remembering this foundational knowledge of my true erotic self is this combustible, just like fiery, desire-based being. And
look at her. She just came on the screen. Go ahead.
And so I feel very excited and really grateful that it really feels like a huge part of this movement of women, like remembering who they are and who we've always been. And the wisdom that just floods in when we remember is just wild. It's like all that doubt just like, wait, no, we do know. And I'm excited to like be part of a world that's led by us, with this knowledge and this wisdom. And yeah, thank you.
Absolutely beautiful, really beautiful woman. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to the land.
Hi, I just wanted to say, as you're talking, so I've been kind of going through a spot in myself where just kind of fractures feel like they come in, and I feel like I get turned upside down, or I can't quite right size. And as you're talking and sharing about different things, I can feel the energy come in and just kind of help lube those places and build up the spine, and hear the thing you're saying about just come back to you and who you are. And then I feel that part of me want to come out and spread and share. And it's just deeply nourishing. And I'm really grateful for the way you transmit it all, so that it just opens parts of me that I probably couldn't do alone.
Do you know that you just demonstrated the entire process? Everything that we do and are going to do, that was it. Wholly, you acknowledged there was something inside that had tumescence. You received. Then when you received, you acknowledged reception. Then when you acknowledged reception, you determined that you would do that yourself for others. That's the entire thing right there. You got it.
And we'll end with Ethan, who had his hand up.
Hi. So yeah, I'm tuning into this this week better than I have previously, and getting sort of the fractal, complex, layered nature of all the landscapes that you're maneuvering. But what I wanted to share is that when you said introvert, artistic, OCD, I thought to myself, oh, it's like looking into a mirror. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so good. All right. We'll